Hello BookTube, my name is Juan, I am just one reader. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the first episode of my new series, Rereading Harry Potter as an Adult. Today it's the first episode, so I will be reviewing and talking about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, depending on where you are and what copy you have. This is my special edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which is a British edition. It has some additional new information that I had never seen before. For example, this in-paper illustration of Hogwarts, and most importantly, it has this very helpful map of the Hogwarts grounds, which I had never ever seen before in my life. And I think it was super useful and helpful to start rereading the series using that information. So I read this book when I was 7 years old. That's when the Harry Potter books were translated into Spanish because I live in Mexico. I'm Mexican. And so I've always lived in Mexico. And when I was 7, these books were translated into Spanish and everyone was reading them. Seriously, every single kid at school was reading Harry Potter. And my parents got me into reading it. They told me, hey, there's this book. I was not really a reader. I didn't really like books. I kind of hated the whole idea of reading. So my parents very nicely, they knew how to get me into reading them. They told me like, hey, there's this new book that everyone is reading. It's so popular. Everyone loves it. You can love it too. It's about magic and this boy goes to a wizarding school. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was a little bit reluctant, but I gave it a go and I fell in love. I started reading this book with my father. I would read a chapter, he would read a chapter to me, and so on. And I very distinctly remember reading chapter 5, Diagon Alley, and I was so obsessed with it. I was so enamored with the idea of this world and being so I felt so enchanted by this world of Harry Potter and so comfortable in it. And let's face it, as a kid, as a 7-year-old kid, who doesn't want to leave a normal world behind and become a member of this wizarding world? It's so amazing. And maybe as a side note here, I should mention that I'm a psychologist, but I also work in education as a teacher of English in 5th grade and here in Mexico City. And for the last couple of years, I have used Harry Potter as my topic theme for the annual project that I do with my students. So we spend months and months doing everything Harry Potter. We read chapters from Harry Potter, we watch the movies, we do things, activities about Harry Potter. It's all about Harry Potter. We dress like Harry Potter. We do everything about Harry Potter. And honestly, I think that's why my teaching career has been so successful, because Harry Potter really allows children to project certain things and also to identify with certain things. And it's such a cool experience for them that they learn a lot more. They learn so much better with Harry Potter. But that is just my experience. Now, getting on with the actual book. The first thing that I noted as I was rereading this book with my adult mind now is how it's all about the dialogue for me. It's about the dialogue. J.K. Rowling has a way that I particularly love about how she makes conversations and how she portrays the characters through dialogue. It's through what they say that we get to know them. And then we start to develop a feel for the characters. Even if there are some characters that she describes very openly and very specifically, she tells us some character traits, for example, the Dursleys or Hagrid or Dumbledore. Even so, she doesn't really tell us that much about their personalities. She just shows us. And with all of the characters, this is real, this is true. It's their dialogues. It's when their personalities shine through and come across to the reader. And it's really cool because as a reader, even as I was a young reader reading this for the first time, I started to develop a feel for who's talking. The only person capable of being this annoying could be Hermione. So this is Hermione talking. Or the only person that could be saying something so ridiculous is Dumbledore. So this is Dumbledore. So you start to really feel like you know the characters. And that's why a lot of people, myself included, obviously believe that the Harry Potter characters are so lifelike and so real, because even if they are so fictional and so magical and fantastical and unreal, they feel like they could exist out there, very much out there. So that's something that I specifically noted, and I think it's a huge asset to this entire series. Now, something that I saw as a little bit of an issue this time that I am 24 years old rereading this book is that it felt very simple for me. Very, very, very simple. Because I am capable of reading things that are much more complicated and complex, this just felt very basic middle grade type of literature. And that's okay, because that's what it is. But I just felt like I was not really getting that much, or I was not really getting anything new or anything special. I should mention that the movie adaptation of this is so fantastic and it's so well made that I felt like the book didn't really have anything new to offer. I felt kind of disappointed because there were not a lot of details that felt new and original for this book. But the little things that were in the book that are not in the movie, I really appreciated. For example, little details like Dumbledore singing the Hogwarts song, Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Huggy Wurty Hogwarts, teach us something, please. That's not in the movies, and I really appreciated remembering that detail in the books. Also, the character of Peeves, something that is not in the movies, and I cannot believe that. It's very funny because even if it is very similar to the movie, there are some little details that matter a lot. Overall, I felt that the writing was good, but it did feel very direct, very concise, and straightforward to me. It felt very fast-paced, very quick, and there were some moments that I remember from the movie that are so grandiose and so majestic. For example, when they get to Hogwarts for the very first time, that is a scene from the movies that I swear it makes me cry every time. It's so magical. And that same scene in the book is kind of just a description of, oh, okay, so they turned the bend in the boats and they saw a castle with a lot of towers and turrets. And that's it. So it doesn't have the same impact. And the movie is really a great adaptation. So it's kind of like, well, I'm looking forward to the next installments in the books because I know that's when things get serious, and that's when there's a lot of material in the books that never found a way to the movies. So I'm looking forward to those details that we never saw in the movies. But for this specific book, that was not the case. The most important theme that I discovered or noticed in this book was the theme of otherness. The weekend that I read this, a lot of people went downtown here in Mexico City to protest against marriage equality and gay adoption because gay marriage is legal now in Mexico, but gay adoption certainly isn't. So a lot of people went to protest against gay adoption, saying that it's completely unnatural and all this ridiculous arguments that I will not repeat here. As I was reading this, I was thinking of that, and it strikes me, and it really impacted me in my reading of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, because this is a book meant for very young children. Like I said, it's a very simplistic, albeit a very well-written and enchanting middle grade, but it is a very simple middle grade. It's for young children, like 8, 9 years old. So there's a lot of issues here about otherness. The Dursleys have this prejudice and this very negative misconception about wizards, and not just wizards, but even muggles that are different. And so the same thing happens with wizarding families within the wizarding world. We see this theme repeated in this book. So it's not just wizards versus muggles or the Dursleys against the Weasleys. It's more than that. It goes deeper than that. It's the theme of otherness and how we perceive what is different as something so menacing and so terrifying that our defense against that is obviously attack. And we see that as an outrage and a scandal, as Hagrid would say. So we have the Dursleys that see everything about wizards as completely ridiculous and bad and crazy and something that should not exist. It's an outrage, it's a scandal. But then we see in the wizarding world, we see that there's also prejudice and there's also difference and otherness and prejudice and misconceptions and violence and abuse, which are very, very interconnected, I think. So we see the Malfoys obviously treating everyone who is different, treating them very poorly. We see even the Weasleys themselves. I mean, there's a part in this book that I absolutely adored because it was so funny, but it was so insightful. It's a part where Harry is asking Ron, "Oh, Ron, so the Weasleys are one of those families of just wizards. It's a pure wizarding family." And Ron says something along the lines of, "Yeah, I think everyone's a wizard. I think my mom has a relative who is an accountant, but we never really speak of them." That is such a wonderful line. It's such a wonderful line and a quote. It should be a quote. I want a t-shirt that says that because it really is funny. It's hilarious. And J.K. Rowling's writing style I find completely hilarious. But it really says a lot. It's about otherness. It's about that person who is different to me. Is it dangerous? Are they a menace? So that's very interesting with everything that's been happening here. And luckily, gay adoption has been legalized now. It's in the process of being legalized now here in Mexico City. So those protests were completely, useless. But still, it's very important, I think, to me. It is, and it will be very important to include diversity and to keep talking about otherness in this type of literature when children are so young and still capable of being flexible and thinking more critically. Now, there's a lot of issues in this book that I will not really mention or go into a lot of detail about because they have been brought up already by some booktubers like Stripped Cover Lit. They have talked about fat shaming in Harry Potter, and I totally agree that the perception of fat people and how that is related to their negative traits, that's an issue. That is an issue, and I could not help but to notice that in this rereading experience, so that's completely true. Overall, what can I say? I really enjoy this. This is Harry Potter. I cannot be 100% objective. So even if I see its flaws, I see that there's a lot of issues in terms of representation of characters, in terms of race, and don't even get me started on sexual orientation or religions. I mean, there's this whole issue of, is Hogwarts a Catholic school or a religious school? Why is there, this whole idea of Christmas? There's just a lot of problematic issues there. Obviously, there's the very problematic issue. Well, I don't know if it's problematic, but it is an issue that Harry Potter is it's a very clear metaphor or allegory for Christianity, which it is, and I'm not sure if that is problematic. Maybe that's just the way that it is. So there's this side to rereading Harry Potter as an adult that makes it very interesting because it does have its things, it does have its issues, it's not perfect. Overall, I think this is a fabulous book to make your debut into reading, and I'm really glad that I started this rereading of Harry Potter. So guys, that was it for my review of Philosopher's Stone. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. and I will see you in October for the next episode featuring Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.